Look at Sean get after it. Yeah, boy. Only one thing gets Sean moving that good. That's Midway Radio.
That's right.
And the soothing sounds of One Doug Infinite. Thanks to Doug for the
thanks to the Doug one.
Yes, yes.
With that being said, y'all, this week, oh, by the way, I'm Carlos. Welcome. This week we're going to be talking to someone that we were joking around about this right before the show, and I was like, I feel weird trying to draw a picture of someone named Artistic. But let's take a minute, because he's not just artistic. He's a graffiti artist. He's a pioneer, one of the pioneering members of Chi Rock Nation, and a co-founder of Chicago Rocks magazine. That, my friends, is Artistic.
Our live studio audience really appreciates you.
All right.
We have nothing but legends on the show, so this is another one in the grand tradition. Episode 20. Episode 20. I don't know. That kind of seems like a lot, but maybe it's not. I don't know. It's a
lot when you don't have any.
This is true.
20 is good. 20 is good.
Yeah. So anyway.
So welcome, everyone.
Yeah.
So usually what we do is we go around the horn and introduce everyone. We already introduced Artistic. We have DJ Sean Doe.
What's up, everybody?
In his room of artistic gifts. Yes. And we have the director of Midway Documentary, the one, the only Ryan Brockmeyer.
Yes, sir. Hello out there.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Midway Radio. Kick this off. We don't really have much updates as far as Midway goes. We're actually kind of, I don't want to say, we're definitely not in a slow period, but we're definitely in a working on other things period for Midway. So we actually haven't done new interviews in a little bit. We're going to be picking those up real soon. And as we always do, we like to stress we're not done interviewing. So
not done yet.
Yeah.
And it hurts my feelings to be the one that continues to have to say this. Don't be trying to blast us on Facebook, try to be planting little nuggets of doubt on Twitter. Stop it.
Yo, son, because they didn't interview me, so it ain't gonna be no documentary. We're gonna interview you, bro.
Hey, and for the record, there's gonna be a documentary.
Yeah, it's gonna be a documentary.
Come hell or high water, I don't give two damns. There's gonna be a documentary. Yes. I don't even care.
Yeah. Oh no. We haven't worked. We worked over 3 years for nothing,
you guys for 2 straight hours.
Exactly. There is going to be something that comes up. For sure. What's up, Chainsaw? Chainsaw, check it in. We had him on the show last week. If you haven't bought his Ill State Assassins biography, please do that. There should be links on our social media for all that kind of stuff. We'll keep posting that stuff after the show. But that was a good show.
Oh, I have an announcement. Real quick.
Yeah.
Big Brother Kingdom Rock. I saw your post on Twitter. I got you. I didn't mean to disrespect. You know, nothing but love. Your cartoon is coming, brother. Your cartoon is coming.
We love Kingdom. And can't wait for that. One thing that I will say that we haven't really put out there. We've been talking to some people about it. We've kind of hinted at it here and there, but we are going to have some Midway merchandise coming up fairly soon. So we're working on some different designs. We're going to start off with some simple T-shirts.
Midway merch.
Various things with Chicago hip hop, and all that stuff that we do is going for, just to help help raise funds for the project. So any little bit helps, because money for gas and for parking and for storage space and for web hosting and all that stuff adds up really, really fast. Especially if you don't have a full-time job like me and you've been paying everything out of pocket for over 3 years. So anything that we can do for that. So be on the lookout for that. I think there are going to be some cool things.
This might be a really good moment to go ahead and say the pockets weren't deep to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely were not
trying to record thing on like one of those. There goes the joke. What's those little red things that we used to look through and you click the Viewmaster?
Yeah, Viewmaster.
Yeah. We were trying to record the documentary on Viewmasters, but it wasn't quite working.
Yeah. So
another failed joke.
Where's the want sound over there?
Let me see if I can't find one. I deserve one.
You do.
So yeah, so I mean, basically, we want to keep this thing going. We want to keep it going and not have to take a hiatus from production or from anything else, because we want this thing to be done, just as quickly as everybody else. So any extra help that we can get from people, like I said, just any little thing would be great. So we're gonna have some merch. We're kind of revamping our Patreon account, so you can get some exclusive cool shit from there. And it's just we got that stuff going. So.
And there's a lot of cool stuff that we do have out right now, so you can check out. Like, you can go to midwaydoc.com, and is it midwaydoc.com?
Midwaydocumentary.com.
Midwaydocumentary.com, and check out the stuff that we've been doing. Yeah. Thank you. I've been hashtagging Midway Doc for so long, like it just comes out. So excuse me, but midwaydocumentary.com. And go check out the stuff that we have up there already. It's a lot of free stuff, a lot of free information, and a lot of good information. So,
well, one of the things, let's see, our social media producer is not here tonight, but if she was, she would say that one of the key things is consistent branding. And me coming from my marketing background, and for those of you who may know or not know, I was a creative director for quite a while with a couple of different marketing companies here in Chicago. And so, that's part of my background too. So you want to be as consistent as you can as far as the branding goes. And we try to do that with Midway, but there was a few things, unfortunately, taken with the Midway thing. Did you guys know that there was a Midway documentary?
Yeah,
already from a few years ago. But yeah, it's about albatross birds. So that's why I wasn't all worried about people getting the name confused. It's just that unfortunately they held the rights. I think they actually have Midway Doc. Well, the airports I think is midway.com, but they had midwaydoc.com, maybe something like that. So
yeah, they have midwaydoc.com. Yeah.
So we don't have anything as cool as albatross birds. We only have a risky business.
This is true. One update that I did want to share with everybody. So this month is Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month, as people may or may not know. And if you subscribe to the Midway newsletter, which you can go to midwaydocumentary.com and do that, we put some cool write-ups like that in those newsletters. We only send them out once a month, and we try to provide more community information as opposed to strictly just Midway. So you can find some stuff there and get caught up on some things, get some links to some events. But this upcoming week is Power Style Week. Power Style Radio. Shout out to Kid Jungle and everybody over there. So they're doing a bunch of different things this week, and you can go to their event page and find out what everything is. They're doing MC battles. They're doing turntable demonstrations. They're doing a bunch of really cool stuff. But one thing in particular that us here at Midway are going to be a part of, we're going to be part of their Knowledge is Power Block, which is Wednesday at Columbia College. And they're doing some different panels. One of those is going to be with us, with the Midway team. And that we go on at 7 p.m. So you can come and check that out. We're going to show some clips of the film. We're going to show, we're going to do a Q&A with the audience. So if there's anything that, that you want to know or you want to learn, you just want to come down and kick it with us, by all means, please come down and do that. And that, like I said, that's going to be at Columbia, which is, let me look at the address, which for whatever reason I don't have up right in front of me. Sean, do you know what it is off the top of your head?
I do not know what it is right off the top of my head, bro. Let me see.
1104 South Wabash, and it's room 705. It is their screening room. So, like I said, 7 o'clock on Wednesday, come down and check us out there. So, got some people already tuning in and saying what's up. Peace to Shockwave. Tego. Who else we got? We got the Mac Boogaloo, of course. So yeah, got some people watching. So shout out to all you guys, man. Artistic dude, thank you so much for being part of the show tonight.
Word up.
Yeah. So
that budget, though, it's all about that budget.
You can also help us buy new sound effects too. So every contribution helps. No, so I mean, we try to bring, one of the things about Midway Radio, which, again, it's another tool for us to help spread the word about the Midway project, but of course, just Chicago hip hop in general. So we try to bring on, who we can just to help educate people and shine a light on some people. And, it's, you have been around for a while and you've got a long background. So maybe you can condense your background for us here in just a couple of quick minutes and tell people where you come from.
Okay. So I, of course, born and raised here in Chicago from the South Side. I grew up on 101st and right off of State Street. So that was the neighborhood that I grew up in, and developed relationships with a lot of hip hoppers during the time I lived in that area. Basically, I started in Chicago, real quickly. It's just, with a historical background first as a b-boy in the early 80s. And, and along with the b-boying, I got into graffiti shortly after and rap at the same time. So I did MC a little bit, but I felt more of a passion for the graffiti and the b-boying. So those were the things that I kind of continued to pursue. I wasn't really as good as I would have liked to have been as an MC, but I can write rhymes.
Here's a question about that. Do you have anything recorded from back then?
Yeah, I sure do.
Oh, we gotta get our hands on that, bro. Artistic rapping? What was your rap? What was your rap name?
Well, I actually used to call myself Awesome D because my first name is Durrell, and I used to call myself Awesome. So when I started rapping, because I started rapping back in 1985, and and I was calling myself Awesome, but then like a year later, I changed the name because I got really into graffiti just the following year later, more heavily. And then I changed it to Artistic.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What was, what influenced you to get into graffiti and kind of focus on that part of the culture?
Well, I always loved art. I've been drawing ever since I can remember back in grammar school. Just trying to, emulate images I seen, different cartoon characters and stuff like that. But, it was just something that I naturally enjoyed doing. But, as I got closer to getting out of grammar school, that's when that whole wave of hip hop kind of hit. And I got real exposure to it. And I was like, wow, when I started really seeing the structural base of the lettering format for graffiti, how to do that, how do they make those letters come alive? Mm-hmm. And then that's when I just started practicing. And I mean, and then every time I met another graffiti artist, it just was a impact of influencing me just that much more. So like in my crew, we had a crew called a Curfew Crew. And we was named that specifically because we always stayed out past curfew. So
is this your first crew?
Yeah, that was my first crew.
Okay.
Yep. And it was just basically a neighborhood crew from the block that we grew up on. And, you know, and in that same crew, like I said, we started rapping because at that time, you know, it was like the thing. We were heavily listening to WHBK at that time. And all the crews back then were submitting their cassette tapes to be heard on the radio. And so it was just like, wow, we need to go make some stuff. You know, we need to put some stuff down and take it down to PK, you know. So we had a buddy on the block that his name was Ronald. And he had some music equipment. So when he found out that we could rhyme a little bit, like I said, I wasn't the best MC, but some of the guys in my crew were real good. You know, he started inviting us over his house, and we started actually laying down. He was creating the tracks for us, and then we started laying down vocals. And you know, and it just kind of grew, man, from there. You know, I mean, and we made a tape, and then we took it down to HBK. They played it, and it was just like from there. That's how we began to form all these relationships.
Nice.
What so a lot, you know, a lot of people that you know, that get into the art side, the visual art side of hip hop already have kind of that artistic background anyway. Were you drawn, you know, like as a kid, were you always drawing and illustrating and doing things before getting into graffiti, or was graffiti kind of your first round with that?
Yeah, that would be correct. Yeah, I mean, I started, you know, as early as I can remember, just drawing what I see. So, you know, I would draw, you know, cartoon characters like Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, you know, just, you know, a lot of comic book characters, you know, like I like Superman. I used to draw him a lot, you know. So basically, and I would just try to emulate whatever I seen. You know, and, you know, and even in school, when I was in school, grammar school, you know, whenever we got any kind of art related projects, I always did enjoy them and you know, kind of excelled in that area. So, you know, art was always a part of the background.
So my question would be, you guys would stay out past curfew. Was your curfew the same as everyone else's when the street lamps came on?
Yeah, you know, like our family was, they did want us to kind of be around in the neighborhood. You know, our parents wasn't, you know, our families wasn't as strict as some others. Like some people literally had to come in the house when the street lights came on. Mm-hmm. But with us, they kind of just wanted us to make sure that we were close by. So we didn't necessarily have to come in. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, but our curfew, you know, like on the weekends was like 11:30. You know, that's what most of us had. But I mean, 11:30 was just when stuff started to happen. So, you know, it's like, wow, you know, it's time for us to go in. But, you know, now the stuff is starting to kick off, and we was always out past our curfew. So that's how we got the name.
How long did curfew crew exist?
Well, like I said, it wasn't really a well-known crew because it was just started from the block in the neighborhood. Yeah. But we actually did run. Probably, I would say from 1985 up until I would say 88. Yeah, because when in 88, by that time I had already joined Chiraq, and I was really one of the only members from our crew that really took it serious. And you know, everybody else kind of fell off from my original crew, and really kind of just, you know, stopped doing anything in regard to hip hop. And they kind of pursued it the most. So, you know, by 88, I was well involved with a lot of stuff in regard to Chiraq.
Nice. So how does Chiraq get into play? Like, so you just transform from the block, and then you help create this huge thing that impacts so many people in Chicago. How does that come about?
Well, you know, it's funny, man, because, you know, again, I grew up on 101st, and at that time, it was nobody in my area that was Chiraq. So, but I knew about the organization. I had a friend that lived across the street from me. He went to Harlan High School. His name was Joe, and you know, we used to call him Ice Joe. He used to write Rasp for his graffiti name. But he went to Harlem, and he knew one of the members, Scope 062. And when he had, I was telling him, I said, man, I want to be a part of a big crew because, we had created some crews. Like I had created a crew called IBC, which it stood for International Bombing Crew. And then I also started another crew called SAR, which stood for Sophisticated Art Rockers. But that crew was just a neighborhood block crew. It was just like me and a couple of my boys from the neighborhood on the block. So, and that's pretty much as far as it went, Yeah. So I was like, at that point, I was like, man, I want to be down with a crew that's established, that's known. And so, and we did have a lot of Southside crews back then that were doing stuff, And so, I was like, man, when I talked to my boy from across the street, Ice Joe, he was like, yeah, man, I know a guy that's in a crew called, he's in the basic crew in the Chirac Nation. So I was like, well, man, I want to meet him. And that's how he got his information. And, we made plans to go over to his crib because, mind you, Chirac Nation started over on the 93rd Street area. So, and I wasn't from that area. I grew up on 101st. But when I went over there, it was immediately, this is where I need to be, when I went over there. So that's how the whole thing came into be. When I hooked up with Scope, he was one of the first people that I met. And from there, then, we just began to meet a lot of the other members and I got more involved and, we know it as history today.
Nice. Basic crew.
Yeah.
It was definitely a crew that inspired me to do graffiti. Because I stayed on 111th and King Drive. So that was my little area over there. And Basic hit and I was always around 103rd, like over east. So talk about Basic and what that was like being in that crew.
Well, so Basic was the biggest crew in Chirac at the time. It was the biggest crew. I mean, Basic, we were one of the biggest in terms of membership. We were the biggest crew on the South Side, next to another crew called IAC, and we also had what is the crew called? Union with Upski. They had a nice little size crew, but I think in terms of numbers, I would have to definitely say Basic, and the other crew was IAC. So from what I remember and recollect, those were like two of the biggest crews at the time. And so when I actually got in and joined the crew, you know what I'm saying? I represented the best way I knew how. And the thing is that Basic was not just a graffiti crew. So Basic, basically, because in the original beginnings, they had what they call, their first name was TWR, and that stood for Together We Rock. And they practiced all the elements, but what had happened was it was found out a little later that there was another crew, and I believe they was either from the north or the west side, and they were already using TWR. So Speedy and them actually decided to change the name from TWR to Basic. And of course, we know Basic, we made that stand for baddest artist still freestyling. So, so when I joined at that time, it had to be at least about 50 members back in 1987. It had to be at least 50 members in the crew at that time.
That's a lot of folks.
So back then, what was the process of organizing a crew of that size?
Wow, that's a good question. And see, and that's why, I thought it was so important to be part of a crew because, again, I had never been a part of a bigger crew prior to that. So when I actually joined, because it was so big, and not only as a crew, it was also connected so heavily to Chirac. And what a lot of people don't understand is Chirac wasn't a nation at the time, but it developed into a nation because it was based from crews. It was what I always explain to people, it was a crew of crews that developed into a nation. So, and so when you think about the actual history, and I'll just share this real quick, you had actually 93rd Street was actually the nucleus. So in that area, which was considered Chicago, I mean, it was called Calumet Heights and Burnside. You know, Burnside was a neighborhood community, but the conglomerate, if you look at the map, is also Calumet Heights. And so you had 93rd Street, okay, and if you go in the middle and say Stony Island, and you go east of Stony Island, you had the crew Nine Trey Posse. And with Nine Trey Posse, you had Fahim, you had Pac-Man, you had Chili T, you had Sub Rock, you had, you know, so that was a whole side on the east side of Stony that were representing, you know, the Nine Trey Posse. And then on the opposite side of Stony, going west, you had Speedies in them crews, Speedy, Scope, you know, Iceman. So all of it, and that was the TWR/Basive crew. So what a lot of people don't know is those were two different crews, but there was also a third connection, and that was another crew that came from out of the suburban area, South Harvey, where they called themselves the Paradise Crew. They were, you know, breakers and, you know, B-boys. And that was where Tronics and Spike 153 came from. So between the three of those crews is what actually formulated what we know as the foundation of the Chiraq Nation.
And getting into that, what was the drive behind organizing and putting everybody together, and kind of like this is why we need to do this? What was the thought behind the drive of Chiraq Nation?
Well, you know, for many years, you know, we were claiming that we were Zulu. You know, I remember when I was going around throwing up Zulu, you know, talking about Zulu Nation, but the reality of it is that none of us had been to New York at that time. And, you know, to be honest, you know, and it's just a fact, none of us was officially Zulu. So, you know, it just made sense. You know, we're representing something that we're really not officially a part of, you know. And so, but the breaker part came really when, you know, there was an encounter with Ku Rocksteady, okay? And as you all may know, Ku Rocksteady was a Zulu member, and he was
nephew of Bambaataa, right?
Correct. And so his idea was that, you know, I'm going to represent the chapter for Chicago Zulus. And basically, he kind of approached the Chiraq Nation in a way where it was just like, you know, he was looking for submission. You know, I'm the representative for the Chicago chapter of Zulus, and you all are in Chicago, so you basically have to submit to me. And at that time, you know, it was just not finna happen, because we realized that we had our own identity. You know, Chicago is Chicago, and so it was just like, okay, you got the Zulu Nation, but now it's really time to really start pushing this thing and making an organization for Chicago hip hop.
I like how you put that together, bro. he said it was not finna happen at all.
How much, you know, so obviously there's, you know, Ku Rocksteady and Cassius D, and, you know, there's some official Zulu members here in Chicago. How much were they actively trying to build up Zulu Nation here in Chicago at that time?
Well, I have very little encounters with Ku Rocksteady, but we had plenty of encounters with Cassius D. And the funny thing is, with Cassius, he was always by himself. You know, like, you talk about the Zulu Nation, he always talked about it since day one, the Universal Zulu Nation. But I always just seen Cassius. I didn't see not one or two or three other people from the Zulu Nation that was with him. So it would be like when we would have meetings or when we would go to parties, it would be like 100 of us over here talking about Chiraq, and it'd be just like Cassius saying Zulu, you know. So, you know, I found it kind of strange that you're part of an organization as big as we knew Zulu was, but yet it's just you. It's just you here in Chicago. So it was a debate on many times, because, you know, we were trying to help Cassius to see we representing Chicago hip hop. We respect Zulu for their contributions, But, you know, we just had to be honest and admit that, hey, you know, we want to build a legacy for our own, that where we come from. And, you know, and of course, you know, I guess Cash has seen it differently. And there was always a debate, you know, Zulu Nation is the original nation. And we started the whole thing and blah, 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 this is that. So, you know, we battled Cassius on many occasions, you know, and just had a lot of encounters with him. But at the end of the day, I always looked at Cassius as just a one-man band, where Shyrock continues to grow and grow and grow. And I mean, you see where we at today. You know, it's just members everywhere.
For sure. And so as you know, as Shyrock continues to grow and expand, you know, part of that is, you know, preserving the hip hop culture and growing it in Chicago and doing a lot of community stuff too. So, so what was that like in the early days, trying to kind of like to organize and push, and what kind of feedback did you get maybe from non-hip hop people?
Well, you know, I think people for the most part that didn't really understand us from coming from the cultural side of hip hop, they appreciated the artistic and the creative part of what we were expressing. So, you know, like from doing graffiti to the way we could lay music, create music and put lyrics over it, to DJing. I mean, Pac-Man was always fundamental with DJing from just way back in the day. And he was also a B-boy too. So, you know, you know, Fahim, you know, MC'd, and Chili T as well. Speedy, Scope, I see, you know, let me just talk about this real quick. You know, like in terms of IC at this time, when I met IC back in those days, he was like, I had never heard an MC rhyme as good as him up until that. I mean, I had never heard somebody at that point. I thought like people like LL and MC Shan was considered to be like raw MCs to me. You know, I really did like MC Shan and LL Cool J, but they were the best to me, along with, you know, everybody else like your Rakim and stuff like that. But I like the style that LL and MC Shan had. And up until then, when I heard IC, it was just like a new wave of fresh material, because IC, I mean, we're talking like he must have been about 15 years old at the time I first met him. Words together that you had to literally look in the dictionary to find out what that word meant. You know, I mean, you hear some words and you say, wait, is that even a word? And, you know, because you don't hear people use it. And then you're like, wow, you look it up in the dictionary. He's like, that's an actual word, you know? So, I mean, that's just how advanced he was, even at the age he was when he was rhyming. So, and I mean, he could even do that in a freestyle format. I mean, not just in written form, but freestyle. So, you know, I think like, you know, with back in the days of Steps and the Blue Gargoyle, people began to really see talent for what it was, and us interacting in the communities along with the help of WHBK and the graffiti scene, because the graffiti scene is another way that catapulted all of us to connect. And I think, you know, it was just like the city kind of recognized like, wow, you know, these guys are really talented. I mean, it was breakdancing going on, you know, just about in every corner, in every neighborhood around and throughout Chicago. I mean, it was just nowhere that you could go that you couldn't see it.
Right. So as Shyrock continues to grow and expand, at what I mean, and probably now, what would you say the numbers are of the members of Shyrock?
Well, like, coming from like a core of about give or take 20 original guys that came together from those three crews, we're definitely, and that's what we're in this restructuring phase, we're definitely counting well over 1,000 members. And that's right now numbering within about 18 states. Yeah, because and the reason why that is because a lot of members have moved from Chicago and now are living in other states. So, and that's why we're really trying to restructure and organize our membership so that we can get updated on members, especially members that we didn't even know had left Chicago and are now living in other states.
For sure, and I don't know how much you want to get into that tonight or anything, but maybe just speak a little bit upon that. You know, if you guys have been around for so long, and now you're kind of doing a little bit of a restructure, a little bit of that, and maybe just speak on that.
Yeah. So basically, you know, like we've had a lot of challenges over the years. Of course, Chiraq is Chicago hip hop. I just want to make sure that's clear. But we've grown, and with the intake of so many members, at some point we was trying to figure out how can we channel some type of organization. And that was the very reason why we instituted the chapters back in 1993, because we had an influx of members. Like we had like people like old school people like Heckle and Ange 13. You know, these were people that go way back in history in terms of hip hop, but they had never joined Chiraq up until that point. So like Ange 13, Raven, Zorro, all of them, you know, Heckle, all of them came into Chiraq in 1993. And that's when that was like a peak period of not only old school people, but people in general. I mean, you know, that were just coming in. And that was the whole idea of why we instituted the idea of the chapters. So now it's moving forward. We're like, okay, the chapters were a good idea for back then, but we're trying to navigate and figure out a better working model moving forward. And what we're leaning toward right now is the idea of maybe the chapters functioning from a regional perspective to be more effective, more so than locally. And we've also instituted the idea of committees now. So we're working the organization now through committees, where we've set up a membership committee, we've set up a fundraising committee, artist development committee. And so these committees are going to help us funnel, you know, and channel the right energy in the right direction. And at the same time, there's no need for competition, unlike the chapters. Right. So it's kind of still being ironed out, but that's kind of the direction that we're leaning toward.
Yeah, and you know, it you know, there's a little bit of you know, sensitive issues coming out with, you know, with people with the chapters and everything like that. And it's not that you know, you're trying to necessarily get away or to diminish anybody's contribution or anything. You're just trying to pull more people together to get people a little, you know, people more on the same page a little bit more to do bigger things, to do bigger and better things. Yeah.
See, if you know, if you go back to back in the day, you had, along with Chiraq, you had other organizations like, and I'm quite sure y'all may have heard, you had Purple Mansion, you had Death Rock, you had Rand Nation, and then you also had Zulu. So you had all these other organizations, hip hop organizations, right within the same city, but yet, you know, a lot of those outside of Zulu died off. And eventually those same people that were in those organizations joined Chiraq, simply because we were trying to help people to recognize that this is for Chicago hip hop. You know what I'm saying? You know, it just made sense.
For sure. Artistic, we got Big Juan says, "What's up?"
Tell him I said hello.
Yes. And he was also saying and wondering how Fear is doing. You still are you still in good contact with him on a regular basis, or?
Yeah, you know, Fear was just here in Chicago. I want to say maybe about a month ago now. I understand he went back to Georgia because he was staying in Georgia for a minute, and then he came back to Chicago. But he has been having some personal issues, like with his health. You know, so he's kind of been off the scene due to that fact. Back and forth to the doctors and dealing with lawyers and stuff like that. He was actually hit by a truck. And yeah, you know, so and then, you know, I think, you know, personally, I think has been suffering also from a little depression just because of the situation. But, you know, Fear has been very, very instrumental in the building of Chiraq, largely contributed to the history of Chicago graffiti. Because Fear was one of the graffiti artists from our crew, from Chiraq, that actually went all city, you know, in the very early 80s. So, I mean, before a lot of other people could admit that, Fear was definitely on the chart back. I mean, before I met Fear, actually when I met Fear, he had already been all city. So he had already rolled with other crews prior to, Basic and the Syndicate, and was already all city by the time I connected with him. So he's one of those type of people that has a very good memory. I mean, he has a database type of style memory where he can just tell you stuff like, just like that. And it's just amazing, this type of stuff that he still remembers.
Yeah. So we didn't know that. So shout out to Fear, man. Good luck with everything. And Juan, man, same to you. Keep your head up, my friend. So in terms of hey, let's go into. We brought up Fear, so maybe let's go into to Chiraq or Chicago Rocks magazine. Yep. There. So that was kind of the baby of you guys. What was the catalyst for wanting to do that, and how'd that all come about?
All right. Well, so let's see. 1991. I made it a personal endeavor of mine to go to New York. I had been wanting to go to New York ever since I could remember, and it was always a challenge. So by the time I made up in my mind that I was actually going to make sure I go, that was in 1991. And I took a trip out there for the weekend by myself, enjoyed it, had a good time, had a good experience, met some people, did some things. Shortly after that, I came back. I subscribed to the Source magazine, which was published by David Mays. And, it was kind of in their new stages. They were in their developmental stages back then. As you all know, it started out as a newsletter back when they were in college. But, it started to continue to grow. And what I appreciated at that time, they were developing this, what they called a regional report. And they had writers in there like Jeffrey Watts or Dr. Groove, as most people know him. And then also Upsky was a contributing writer. So we had a little representation from our end, and I felt good about that. But then they also opened up a section in there for graffiti. And they were saying, hey, send us your stuff in, wherever you at, and we'll put it in there. So I had a collection of graffiti pictures and stuff. And, we was using 35 millimeter cameras before all the digital stuff came out. And, we developed film and, I would send them pictures. But it was kind of disturbing because they never put any of them in there. So, I kept feeling like, well, wait a minute, I've sent several pictures and I've heard other people sending pictures from Chicago. And yet every time I get the issue, and by the way, I had to subscribe to the magazine, so I'm getting it every rip. And every time I look in there, I'm constantly seeing New York, New York, New York, New York. So, I'm thinking like, okay, it doesn't seem like they are really going to commit to highlighting, other cities like, we thought. So we decided that we were going to put out our own magazine, and we were going to do just the opposite. If you're from Chicago, you have an outlet to be seen in this magazine. And that's how it went. So we had no experience with publishing, no money. I didn't even have a computer, And what we did was we just had the history and the love and the passion. So we came into my basement, Fear and I, and we started writing stuff down. We started compiling pictures and getting tape and glue and paper and just started piecing stuff together, right? And then after we did that, we was like, okay, we got a little draft here. Let's go copy it. So then we ended up over at Office Max, and we also went to Kinko's, and we started learning all of this stuff. All of this was like trial and error. And we're like, man, okay, so we make these copies, okay, 8.5 by 11 is not going to be magazine format. So we got to do 11 by 17. And then we fold it, right? So after we got the 11 by 17 double-sided copies and we correlated them, now we're like, okay, now how are we going to hold this together? I mean, we need, some type of binding method. So we didn't have any equipment again, too. So we took the staples, and we didn't have a stapler at the time that literally could punch the holes in there for a magazine that size. So we were taking the staples one at a time and putting them in with our thumbs and then turning it over and folding it in on the other end. And we like, okay, that's one. And then we do it the next one, you know. And then we found out that Staples sold a stapler that was specifically designed to staple magazines. So we picked up one of those, and it was like, whoo, that saved us a lot of time for, you know, stapling them. But we
probably a lot of loss of blood too. Jesus.
Either that, they have some crazy calluses on their thumbs.
They end up looking like me.
So after we printed up some copies, you know, just a small batch, we were trying to find a place to sell them, and we know we was gonna sell them on the streets, but we wanted actually stores to help us to sell them, you know, to distribute them. And at that time, we came across one of our boys, Doug Infinite, and Doug actually had a skate shop was called Underground Wheels at Ford City, and he was one of the first stores we put the magazine in. And from there, that gave us the incentive on how to approach and, you know, go to managers and owners in these stores to try to get the magazine in the stores.
Real quick, we need to go ahead and toss Artistic in the pile of hard-headed Chicago-based heroes. Because if you tell someone from Chicago, no, you can't really do that, what you just got done saying is, this is what you're about to do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we, like, literally everyone we've had on this show, someone told them, nah, that's not a good idea. And then they turn around and say, bet, okay, I got you. You're folding staples with your thumb. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't know what it is. I don't know why the world continues to, like, beat Chicago down. Just let it happen, because it's going to happen.
It's going to happen. We're going to do it.
Yeah. You know, we had no idea, guys. We had no idea where this was going. We just was trying something and just, you know, waiting to see what happens if it was going to grow at all. But when we put them in a couple of stores like Doug's, and there was another store in there called Where It's At. A guy named Greg used to run that. You know,
what's his last name?
I forgot. I would probably have to look it up in my records because I still got his old business.
I think I know him.
Yeah. They used to have
He's a tall dude that used to be dressed to the nines. It didn't even matter.
Yeah, it might be the same guy. You know, I mean, you know, I haven't seen him in years, but you know, we started mapping out the city because once we put them in like Doug's store, they began to sell, and you know, at that time. Just black and white, and I couldn't figure out like who was really buying these magazines. You know, we wasn't even doing any advertising back then either at that time. And so, you know, then I tried a couple of other stores like Gramophone on the north side and Dr. Wax over in Hyde Park, and same situation. They actually was moving. So, you know, after about 2 years. We realized that the going to Staples and Office Max it was too much of a slow turnaround. So I began to research printers, and we found a newsweb printer out in the south suburbs called the Regional Printing Company, and that's where we first, you know, ran our first run of official magazines on a press type style of printing. So yeah.
And then they eventually got it into Tower, which then took it national.
Yeah. I actually used to go to Tower to shop to get my graffiti magazines. And I remember looking at all the magazines in there, and I kept saying, man, you know, Chicago Rocks needs to be on this shelf just like the rest of these, right? You know, we already had them in some other stores that was selling. So I said it should be right in here too. So I remember going to the counter, and I spoke with a guy named Billy Tuggo. Okay.
Yes.
And,
shout out to Billy.
Yes, sir. And Billy was, you know, I asked him if he think it might be possible if we can get Chicago Rocks magazine on the shelf with the rest of the other magazines. And he was like, I don't see why not. And he gave me the number to the headquarters in California at the time. And I called them up, and, you know, they said, yeah, you know, we carry a lot of underground hip hop and graffiti magazines. So I sent them a batch, and that began a new relationship and a new dimension for us, because they sent me back a chart showing where every time we had a printing and we would sit, you know, it would come out, I would ship them 200, 300, 400, 500 magazines. They would send them out to all of the stores, and every store they sent them to, they would send me a list so that I know how the magazine was circulating, you know, and that actually helped our numbers go up because, you know, readership, it increased.
That's the one thing, you know, everybody always talks about, you know, oh, corporate bad and all this other kind of stuff. Tower was corporate, but they were just, I've always looked at them as kind of just like a big indie chain. Like they were, and that's kind of what they were. They were an indie chain that just kind of blew up and got popular. But that's really cool for them to support a project like that, because there's definitely a lot of places that wouldn't even give you the time of day, let alone actually follow through and do something with that. And again, shout out to Billy Tuggle. Risky and I did his mixtape with 800 Pound Gorillas back like 10 years ago. So I've known Billy for a long time.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely.
So
it's been quite. I was just gonna say it's been quite a ride. I meant to show you guys. This right here is the actual one of the first issues of the magazine back in August of 1993. So again, you know, it was just a 24-page layout. You know, primarily it was done in black and white. This is actually a current copy that I made. You know, and it actually has.
Have we told you that we've teamed up with Columbia?
Yes.
Center for Black Music Research.
Yes, I am aware of that.
That's a museum piece right there, kid.
Yes.
All right. So yeah, I still do have all the actual. No, I was just gonna say I still do have all the actual original copies.
Nice. What line of work were your parents in, and were they like an influence into what you're getting into this whole time? Because you have this drive and you really are artistic.
Oh, thank you.
And so where does that drive come from? We didn't talk about that already, did we? No.
Well, you know, yeah. I mean, I've had a couple people ask me that, and surprisingly, none of it really came from my mom. Well, you know, I guess I can take that back because my mom was a seamstress. Mm-hmm. So, you know, she still had some type of creative side to her. She even made her own prom dresses when she went on prom, you know, so, yeah, you know, and she did that actually, you know, for other people. She helped other people make their clothes. And then my father was a businessman. He owned a bar back in the 70s. You know, so, you know, he was running his business. So I think my mom said that's where I got the entrepreneur spirit from, because he had his own business back then. And to this date, I've ran about 3 different businesses, including Chicago Rocks.
Nice.
Wow.
I don't know. There's a recipe that's happening. That's just, and you're not quitting. You're figuring things out, and you grow it, and then it becomes successful. So you're a really good role model for folks out there that hear someone say, "Nah, it's probably not the smartest thing to do." Just turn around and go do it. Figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, it's you know, nothing is easy when you're first starting off. But, you know, I think, like they say, you know, you don't get into doing something just to do it for the money. Mm-hmm. It's really the idea, and it's for the passion and the love for why you're doing it in the very first place anyway. Sure. And as long as you got that passion, everything else is going to follow. You know, I mean, hip-hop was never about money to any of us. It was always about the craft and the love for it. So now what you can get out of that can eventually generate and turn into money. But, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, it always originated with the passion and the love for the art.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as kids, man, it was kind of like, first of all, I want to thank you for giving us weirdos some place to be, because we were always looked at as the outcasts, like the hip hop kids were the outcasts. So we needed a place to band and join together and be around other people that was exactly like us. And we were able to, in that place at the Terradome, we were able to be us and express ourselves to and have other people like us around us. So I definitely want to big that up, because I can't think where I would be today without Chirac Nation, without Chicago Rocks Magazine. I don't know. I'm telling you, Suspense is the reason why I did graffiti.
Wow.
He was the reason. I would go up to the mall and sit with him and just talk with him about, man, I want to go bombing, bro. Like, what do you think I should do? Or even with coming up with CBS, like I went to him first and I was like, man, I want to start a graffiti crew. You think I could do CBS? He was like, yeah, it's a crew called CBS, but they've been long. They stopped writing a long time ago. You should just do it. Yeah, and we did. It's amazing.
That sounds like Suspense too.
Yeah, Suspense was like, just do it, bro. And he's been like, he is probably my first mentor in the world of graffiti. Like, I was already doing characters, stuff like that, but he was the reason. And the B's and the B's and Tools wall. The wall, I would go over there and just sit there and be amazed at what you guys were doing. And I met you before back in the day, but I've already met you through the graffiti pieces, bro. Like, yeah, like it's definitely an honor, man. And it's an honor to be a part of this Chicago hip hop. It's an honor to be a part of all this. So
yeah, I agree. And look, I mean, you know, I salute you and everybody else on the Midway team as rest of other people in Chicago, because the feeling is mutual. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just like you just described, I have very similar feelings toward people that encourage me. You know, so it's a cycle. You know, it's an ongoing cycle that just continue to permeate throughout Chicago. And I think Carlos said it best. It's like an ingredient. It's a wave that's constantly revolving around us here in Chicago, and it makes us generate ideas and make things happen with little resources.
let me ask both of you guys this, because, you know, I don't know if you've heard, I like to throw pencils around from time to time, my crayons and such. And I walk around Chicago today and be like, man, I wish I had the courage to just walk up to a wall and just put something up there. When I was a kid, my fear was my mother whipping my ass. That was, if I ever got caught, I'd be like, no, you can just leave me in jail. Don't send me home with this crazy lady. So talk to me about that. Like, what's it like to finally think, that's the wall, this is the piece, I'm gonna do it? Yeah.
You know, it's so exhilarating. It's an experience that if you've never done it, I mean, I can describe it, but it's not even close to the actual reality of it. I mean, because like I actually painted walls, but I also painted trains. And, you know, there is a difference between a wall and a train. So like a wall, you know, it's exhilarating.
About 50 miles an hour.
Yeah. I mean, it's physically an energy difference. You know, like at a wall, the wall is just there. But the train yard is running with electricity, is running with, you know, engines, it's running with heat. You know what I'm saying? Metal, you know, and all type of stuff, man. And so it's a different type of energy. So, you know, like, you know, but to like think of an idea first on paper, sketch it out, and then take it to the reality part of bringing it to life on a surface it really is amazing. And I just think like, and then it's also a difference in scale, because you can draw an outline on a piece of paper, on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of piece of paper. But then when you get ready to go put it on the wall, the scale size is going to be much different. So you got to be able to draw in an additional expanded degree from the letter style that you put on that piece of paper, you know? And so, yeah, man, but it's really, man, it's really something. I mean, you know, and then the good thing about the train is the wall is stationed, but the train is mobile. So if you go do some artwork, you know, if you did artwork on a train, you had the additional, you know, feeling of, wow, now not only is it on this train here in the yard, but now it's going to pull out. Yep. It's going to ride for other people to see
it. Yep. that's man, that's an amazing thing. I just like I didn't hit trains. I think I might have hit one train, but the walls, the energy from the wall was what got me. Like the wall would call me, like, oh, that's an awesome wall. I need to hit that. And we just plan on how to hit it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was interesting. I was thinking back of when I first went to doing tunnels. You know, I really wasn't that much of a bomber. I did do it, but I really enjoyed actually piecing that more. You know, we did rooftops, we did walls at the different walls of fames, and we did trains. But I kind of got a little bit into the bombing and doing tunnels and, you know, stations and stuff like that. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the first time I went tunnel bombing was with Upski, you know, Upski and a couple of other writers, because Upski was really, he was pretty heavy in the bombing era back in the mid 80s. So, you know, and that was a very good, it was a different experience. And even on a rooftop, it's the same type of adrenaline, you know, because up there, you know, you're on a rooftop, and then you still got to be careful because trains are going past, and you know, people might see you from the trains. Yeah. You know, so you still, thing is, graffiti was always done at night. So the other thing of the artistry behind that is now you got to not only be an artist as you already are, but now you got to learn how to work in dark. You know what I'm saying? You know, you got all these different colors, and now you have no light, and you're trying to figure out, you got green, you got blue, you got red, you got purple, you got yellow. But at the same time, you have very minimal light to put those colors on the wall in that you're painting in the middle of the night, you know? So it was just a real challenging, you know, strategic effort to do something like that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on seeing the evolution from true graffiti artwork back in the day to now, where everybody calls it, you know, street art, and a lot of people are getting paid good money to commission things that wouldn't normally have, you know, gone up in either certain places on certain buildings and that, but it's kind of I guess more on a kind of a bigger global scale of just the accepting more of hip hop culture. But coming from somebody who's been in graffiti for that long of a time, what are your thoughts about it being more accepted now?
Oh, I love it. I mean, you know, I think graffiti should be right along with other art disciplines that has come and gone, or, you know, become more established from over the years. I mean, like fine art and architecture and sculpturing and things like that. Because, I mean, it's just like, it's an art. It's just like anything else. Now, right. You know, you may view it as an illegal activity if you're doing it on some property that you don't have permission to, but nevertheless, it is still art, you know? And I think that was always the debate with some people. People felt like because you're doing it illegally, it's not art. But, you know, I always disagreed with that, because you still had to know how to do certain things as an artist, even though it still was an illegal activity. And then today, some of the very same people are doing this and making a living. They're doing full-scale commission work and getting paid. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, so.
Right. Did you ever have any close calls back in the day, either with authority or with injury?
Oh yeah. We had several encounters. You know, that was another you know, part of the story, you know, the past stories of, you know, the life and the energy and, you know, just the excitement of it, the thrill. You know, the idea is to try to get in and get out without getting caught. But unfortunately, you know, I can't say that I've never been caught, because it's just not the truth. But I remember some of those experiences where each time it happened, it became more of a burden, because, you got to go through all of this rigmarole, systematic, fingerprinting and photo taking and confiscation of your camera and your paint and back and forth to court and fines and, all of that stuff. So then, the more you do it, the more times you experience that, you get to the point to where you're like, okay, at some point I got to stop doing it.
I think the worst thing that could have ever happened to the city of Chicago for our art as hip hop graffiti art is graffiti blasters. And it seemed like the police were just more like, they really didn't even care about the graffiti versus just catching young people who were into hip hop. Like, it was like a thing for them. And they were very hard on us. So I don't know if you've ever encountered the graffiti blaster team, but I have, and it was just not a cool thing. If you've encountered that, can you talk about that for a little bit?
Well, back in my time, when I did have encounters with the law, there was no graffiti blasters. Mm-hmm. So the graffiti blasters came out much later. Yeah. But I do know that when Chicago was hit real heavily with graffiti, it was very new. It was just like the city was caught off guard, just like New York was. And that's why they began to develop a task force of a team of people specifically to learn about how to catch these artists, because they didn't know how we were getting in and getting out with doing all of that type of damage. You know what I'm saying? So, we're just like, okay, we need to, when they did start catching us, it was like they asked questions, they confiscated our stuff, and they began to learn the strategy of how we were doing stuff. And that helped educate them in terms of helping them catch more people. So, in fact, I remember 1988, we had like a competition thing going, and we got caught. I think it was in the train yards, and one of us had a flyer for a graffiti meeting that was about to occur. So when the police arrested us, they search you and everything, and they take all of your stuff, and so they found this flyer, and then they wrote up an article in the Sun-Times newspaper, and they said that the graffiti artists were out doing this work in connection with this graffiti competition. Well, of course, that wasn't true, but that's what they made the story into. But right. they used that material to publicize it, to try to say, hey, they have methods and tactics as to why they do what they do. And it was just crazy because they used that information from that flyer to further expose what we were doing from the underground. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny as hell, though.
Yeah. So, Chicago, like you said, it definitely has a rich history. Also, I want to mention, too, where a lot of people may not know, is Chicago was really well known for developing the art of airbrushing. So, airbrushing really caught on along with graffiti and became a means to helping people generate money. Yeah. Because people wanted their name and stuff painted on their clothes and things of that nature. So when we started doing it back in the early 80s, we were doing it for ourselves to put it on our own clothes. But I remember going in high school where people was like, where'd you get those jeans? And I'm like, oh, I painted them. And they like, oh, wow, could you do mine? And, that whole thing just turned over into a way of exchange of where it was a money-making thing for us, and some of the artists in Chicago, like Orko and Slang and another writer named Fess, old school writer named Fess. We had another guy named Surf. He's still airbrushing today. Rafa, myself, Crack, Suspense. So we were kind of like pioneering. Riot was airbrushing. They had a whole crew of people just in Jewtown alone. Spike 153, Chaos, Slick Rick. They were all down in Jewtown airbrushing.
I see Nick Salsa. Nick Salsa's still doing it a lot.
Yep, Nick Salsa. Yes, sir. Yep. So it just, I mean, Crack was one of the first people to start a shop on the west side of Chicago. He had a shop on Madison and Pulaski. And in fact, he was one of the people that kind of helped help me develop my whole style of airbrushing, because he was a little more advanced. And he opened up a shop and on the west side, and then he had a mobile cart too, because his father was helping him. And so, he was definitely a pioneer of airbrushing in Chicago as well as graffiti.
That's dope.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got an idea for this or that.
So what? What are you working on now, creatively? What's your outlet nowadays?
Well, right now, along with the developing of the new order for Shyrock, another idea that it's not a new idea, it's really an old idea, but it has resurfaced. And so what we had originally set out to do back in '92 was we had planned to write a book on Chicago hip hop. So at that time, like I said, we didn't have a lot of resources, but what we decided to do was to try to do something on a smaller scale to generate revenue to help us work toward the project of the book. And so that got us off into Chicago Rocks, and it just consumed us, and the book actually just got put on hold. But along that time, we were working with Upski, because Upski was like a mediator at a lot of our Shyrock meetings. And, Upski actually was collaborating with us and began to just start to put together his material and articles. And then he put out Bomb the Suburbs. And so, we kind of just put the book on hold because we had got so involved in the magazine. But, as I've resurfaced, I realized how important it is. And especially you guys have been an influence too, on how important it is for us to have that book still published. So there is Flash from the ABC crew on the north side. He actually came together with another writer named Telly, and they were putting together a manuscript as well. But of course it's not completed. So now what we're trying to do is collaborate together. And and Flash is also a Shyrock member, so we're actually trying to work on seeing how we can collaborate the north side with it, because he got more north side in there than anything, and they really don't have a lot of south side. So then that's where I'm going to come in, and we're going to see if we can combine the all the stories and photos and all of that collectively into making this one book.
Well, if you need a guy, we know a guy. Chainsaw was on here last week showing off his book, talking about how good it was. So we're trying to get him into coaching people into writing more books. So if you need a guy, we can probably look at Sean got it.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Last week I tuned into that, and I was really an honor to see that even come to a completion, because I never knew that Chainsaw was even interested in writing a book. But I think it was more so of putting that story out there, but now the book that we're talking about doing is going to not just be my story. It is going to be a collaboration of as much, just like what you guys are doing, of the entirety of Chicago hip hop. So that's our goal. And we know that it's one of those things that's going to take a little time.
Yeah.
Shout out to Kingdom Rock real quick. I think he's watching. He said that Artistic, you painted my pants in high school.
Yeah. Even and I went to high school together. Yeah. So we went to Dunbar Vocational High School together, and he's right. I did begin to paint clothes for people back in high school.
Is this airbrush or just?
I was doing both. I was actually airbrushing, and I used painted with brushes and acrylic paint.
I used to do that too.
Yeah.
Speaking of airbrushing in Chicago, so Slang had a shop on 95th, right?
Correct.
I found this. So this is my old crew. That's Slang.
Nice.
Oh wow. Slang did that?
Yeah. Slang. So I had a crew with SP1 and actually Ivan Jasper, who's Kanye's kind of like barber. My boy Ed, Bilal, which is actually Mustafa Rock's little brother, and a bunch of other cats. We was in this crew called Clout, and I created this logo, and which was it was Clout kind of like this, but then the P sign was the O, and we kind of just ran with it. So Slang put it, he took my design, kind of upgraded it, put it on his shirt, and then Clout got upgraded through Brother Man, which is Brian and Mustafa's clothing label. Do you remember Brother Man?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
yeah.
So because we were so closely knit with Bilal and Mustafa, when the Brother Man hats came out, we had a Clout hat. So it was super sick for us and our crew. So
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. No, I just found this airbrush piece and I just wanted to show it because we're super sick. Big ups to Slang.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, like I said, I also forgot to mention JVC was also one of the people that early artists that had access to an airbrush. It was very few artists in Chicago back then that had access to an airbrush. Also, Dr. Gorey. Dr. Gorey was very instrumental in, airbrushing, pioneering the airbrushing through the graffiti artists, as well as using the repeatograph pens. It was just one of those things where a lot of us didn't even have access to that. We didn't even know what that stuff was. And
that's crazy. Now is like the technology advances. We did our graffiti talk at Google back a while ago. Now we're hoping to get that up soon. That's out of our control. So I know we definitely get people to ask us about that on occasion. That's out of our control. We're just hoping that it comes up soon. But one of the cool things about that I really hope people will see is Google's Tilt Brush, which is their virtual reality graffiti software. I mean, it's Sean was there. I'm trying to think. Artistic, were you at that talk?
I did not come, but I did see some clips of that where you guys had like Slang and Trickster.
Yeah.
Up there.
Yeah. And they had on virtual reality glasses and were painting what was it like? It was a bunch of different brushes, maybe like 30 or 40 brushes on that thing. Yeah, it was insane.
Yeah, the amount of the different things that you could do with that is crazy.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, it's just like, when I talked to my boy Teal from the MUL crew, who owns the paint company called Momentum, when he told me about the new brands of paint that's out that is actually made by graffiti artists for graffiti artists,
yes,
I was just thrown. I was thrown. Because back when we were painting, no paint companies were owned by graffiti artists. So it just shows how it has grown and how it's just taken, it's just gone into another dimension.
Yeah, and there's correct me if I'm wrong. I was never a graffiti writer, but there's a lot of the paint companies that lost out on a lot of opportunities because they didn't follow through at how they should, and that opened the door. Right to that.
Yeah, Kryline, if they had Kryline was kind of one of the favorites for a lot of artists. And if they had embraced us, things could have been different. But now I understand that Kryline is like at the rock bottom now. They're not even considered to be a quality brand of paint now.
Nobody's racking Kryline anymore. Like, leave that there.
That's too funny.
That's crazy.
Oh,
should we move to this or that?
Yeah, I guess so. Let's do this or that.
All right.
All right. It's pretty simple, Artistic. We just got a couple of choices, and you pick this or you pick that.
Right.
Carlos, you've got a few, so I'll let you start.
I'm gonna come out with the heat right away because it sounds like you and I probably were in high school right around the same time.
Okay.
And you being a connoisseur of the paints and the dealing with the clothing, I want to know Francois Gibaud or Cross Colors.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
Well, I really wasn't. I really, and I'm gonna just be honest. I really wasn't a fan of neither one. But if I had to take a pick, what was it again? What was the question?
Cross colors or Jabot?
Okay, I probably would just say cross colors.
Nice. All right. So looking at your history, and this is, we can expand on this one because I have questions about both of these. Would you rather rock spray cans or carry cardboard?
Wow, that's a tough one. Would I rock spray cans or carry cardboard?
Yeah. Graffiti or b-boying? Which one would you rather?
In this day and age, I may not be able to do too much on that cardboard. So
that's funny.
Fair enough.
There's some conversation happening on the chat room, kind of putting you on blast on it real quick. They're saying that you carried back in the day. You carried both.
Yeah, that would be true.
All right. What do you prefer, CMYK or RGB?
Well, I am a designer by profession and also a printer. So, RGB is, primarily on the computer, but, I specialize in printing. So I would definitely say CMYK.
CMYK brings home the money. CMYK makes green, son.
That it does. Sean, excuse me. Sean, do you have any?
I think Source Mag or Double XL.
Source Mag. Yeah.
Nice.
I was just I posted today just to kind of a memory kind of came through my head. And just kind of got me back to I and again, showing age or whatever, not bitter or anything like that, but I miss the days of like picking up a Source magazine and finding out news for the first time or reading about upcoming records and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, I decided to listen to Gangstar Moment of Truth today, and the thing that popped into my mind. Speaking of the Swords, they're talking about upcoming albums, and one of them was Gangstar Moment of Truth. And I remember they quoted the line from Robin Hood Theory off that album, talking about and Guru was saying something about we're not going to do any more interviews till we get paid out the frame like Donahue. And I'm just thinking, like, that was 98, so that was right when everything, that was the puffy. That was the puffy age right there. And even people, even somebody like Nas dropped some horrible albums in that time frame. and all I can think of is like, man, I don't know if I want to hear this album if that's kind of what they're going. Like, if those are the lines that you're trying to quote for that. But then, of course, they dropped possibly my favorite Gangster album of all time. But just speaking of Source, that always gets with I don't know. Anyway, Sean, you got some bandages on your hand. I wanted to ask you about that earlier. What? Just out of curiosity, what happened there, dude?
Really, bro? I thought we were still doing this or that. You didn't give him your this or that. We gotta go to the this or that, right? Really?
Okay. How about this? A knife or a ratchet?
Yeah, I figured yesterday it was this thing.
Ratchet thought.
So yesterday I crossed off a bucket list. I wanted to kind of see the inside of my fingers, so I just did that, bro. I just did it. Crossed it off my bucket list. Blood all over the place. Rushed myself to the hospital. But no, I actually was so my grandfather right now, his hedges were like extremely big, like it looked like a jungle out there. So I just took the electric hedge clippers and I was trimming the bushes down, and I had to get some by a gate. I hit the gate, the electric hedge trimmers popped off and hit my hand, and I split my fingers in two. So wow. Yeah, it just happens. I'm okay.
Well, it's two fingers, so you split it into four.
Yeah, so yeah. It's just
he wants to be able to do new DJ tricks.
Yo, it's going down. It's going down Saturday. Come see me at Sweet Lounge.
Records at once.
DJ Stub Miss Jenkins is going. It's going down. It's going down. Sweet Lounge.
2x2. Too good.
Well, as we wind down a little bit here, dude, Artistic Man, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight, man. We really appreciate it.
Definitely, it's an honor, man.
And we're obviously we're glad for all your support for our project, and obviously we're here to support you. And again, that's the thing too, is that there's a lot of room for a lot of different historical projects and different perspectives and different things like that. And one of the cool things about seeing a lot of people come together for Midway is seeing some inspiration that some people are coming back and they're like re-releasing music, or they're getting back into some other art form that they hadn't done before. It's just really cool to see that kind of surge of positivity and everything coming from that. So,
and there's plenty for everybody, because just take a look at all these damn Godzilla movies. There's about 200, and they're coming out with 2 more. Like, we don't need that many Godzilla movies. Come on now.
This is true. This is very true. Yeah. So if people wanted to catch up on you and what you got going on, and Shyrock too, where can people check out some of that stuff?
Well, I'm on Facebook heavily, so they can reach out to me on Facebook under my name, Daryl M. Roberts, artistic. Or they can catch me also through our website, which is ShyrockNation.com. So we also have a contact page on there where they can reach out to us and submit questions or comments or anything like that.
Dope. Sean, dope.
You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram under DJ Sean Doe, and then Facebook is my whole name, or Rasan Sean Doe Hawkins.
And Carlos?
First off, hey Sean, every time I hit a bomb, you got to let me know, and then I do this.
Good job.
With that being said, you can find me online. Find me online. Just look up Coconut Justice. You'll see me there. And for the record, I do have a drawing. My technology is being an ass today. So It's in there. It's in there. But I got to finish it up when I get home. I'm in LA right now. So I'm out here all homeless and stuff, but I got you. I wanted to do something special because you and me speak the same language, so we got Your name is artistic. I can't just be like throwing mess out there. You'd be like, get out of here.
Appreciate that.
Cool.
So yeah, I'll hook you up.
Yeah, dope. And if anybody's looking for me to follow me personally, you can look at me at Twitter, Instagram, 278 Media. The number is 278 and Media. Definitely want to send a shout out to everybody who watched the show. We got Tego, we got Kingdom Rock, DJ E, Shockwave.
That's a good one.
Who? Yeah.
One last this or that, because this is monster. This is I want to know this.
Mark Davis, also watching. So yeah, got.
Nice.
I got one more this or that.
So, yeah.
Puma or Adidas?
Ooh,
Gangsta.
That's a good question, but I would have to go with Adidas.
That's right.
Well played, sir. That's it. I'll be quiet.
That's right. Adidas is killing this year.
I want to end by, of course, mentioning our sponsors, Shure Microphones, being a big sponsor right now. So thank you to them for providing us with some microphones from their Motive line for our show. You can check them out at shure.com, SHURE.com. Our music for the show was provided by Doug Infinite and High Power Studios. Next week on Monday the 24th, our next show is going to be with GLC.
Sure.
So be sure you tune in for that. I'm sure there's going to be some interesting conversation going on there. For more information on Midway, you can check out midwaydocumentary.com. Follow us on social media. Twitter is Midway Doc. Instagram is Midway Doc. Facebook is Midway Documentary. And if you'd like to help, you can donate in two ways. You can either do a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can do a monthly contribution via Patreon. Both links are on our website, midwaydocumentary.com. And don't forget, on Wednesday, we're going to be at Columbia College talking to Power Style Radio and everybody there that's happening with Chicago Hip Hop Heritage Month there. That starts at 7. So, yeah, guys, great show. Artistic, thanks again, man. And we will be we'll be at it next week. So until then, peace.
What about that sound budget, though? Boom.
We got mad sound budget.
Hit me one time, Carlos.
And that's how we end it. All right, guys. Till next week, man.
Thanks a lot. Peace, y'all.
Peace.